So today I wanted to talk about web search. And I'll start by saying I don't know how I'm going to follow up on this. I definitely won't be doing any singing, but hopefully you guys will dance anyway. So today I want to talk about search. And I've been thinking about search for a long time, for several years now. And the past few years have been very exciting times to be working on web search, because the web itself has changed pretty dramatically over the past several years. You see, in classic information retrieval, the traditional model for search is this. For the web is this. It's the library. A lot of the theoretical underpinnings for web search came from the library sciences. And in fact, Google itself came from the Stanford Digital Library project. But the web today looks a lot more like this. It's real time. It's very social. People are communicating en masse with various levels of pseudonymity, real identity, and anonymity. And so a question that's underpinned my research is, how do we build search engines for this crazy web? A lot of people look at this as a challenge, and it is. How do we find the books at this party? But I like to think of it as a great opportunity to think about new paradigms for search, people-centered paradigms for web search. And today I'm going to talk about a couple of projects that explore this idea. The first project is called We Feel Fine. This is a project that I did with my collaborator, Jonathan Harris, a few years back. And I'll jump right into a demo. Essentially, the basic idea behind We Feel Fine is that we have a continuous crawler crawling the blogosphere, taking sentences that start with I feel or I am feeling, and visualizing them in different ways. So We Feel Fine has 6 visualizations, which we call movements. And we're looking at the first movement right now, which is called Madness. Madness is intended to be the skyscraper view of the world. And each dot represents a person. And they have people-like characteristics. They exhibit curiosity. If you put your mouse in one place, they all try to see what's going on. And they also exhibit fear. So if you chase them around, they'll run away. And the idea of the skyscraper view of the world is you can take any of these dots out and put them back in, and it won't make a big difference to the overall aesthetic. But if you click on any one person, you'll see how they're feeling, and they become the center of the world. I was feeling a bit lightheaded, and I was trying to keep a normal conversation, and I was in my PJs. I feel like I and the world is in heavy metamorphosis, and I feel like looking through my lens rather than at it. The second movement is called Murmurs. And in Murmurs, all the dots go up to the top and march down one by one. I feel really attracted to Nicholas. I feel better, so that is good. I feel like a nerd making a Lord of the Flies reference like that. I feel 60-ish. I feel good with this new do. And so unlike the madness of madness, here we present some order with all these different sentences. The third movement is called Mobs, and in Mobs, the dots self-organize under various different axes. So right now, it's organized by feeling, and you can see that right now people are feeling better. People most commonly feel better right now, followed by good, then bad, then sorry, then well, then sick, then great, then right, then comfortable. And they organize by other axes as well. So we can see that more women are expressing their feelings right now than men. This is pretty common. We can see most bloggers are in their 20s. We can see that this is an English language crawl, so we can see that most people come from the United States or England or Canada or Australia, although it looks like there's one person over here from Delhi. I'll pick up my pamuk and try to drink up the world in front of me, and I promise I shall feel no pity for you. And since we know the location and we know the time of the post, we can also know the weather. And so here are the feelings of people when they're sunny, when it's cloudy, when it's rainy, when it's snowy. I mean, I'm thrilled to have made friends here and everything, but I feel like everything is falling apart. The fourth movement is called Metrics. And in metrics, instead of looking at the feelings that are most common, we look at the feelings that are most overexpressed at any time. So right now, people are feeling lucky 4.1 times the average, big 2.5 times the average, and uncomfortable 2.2 times the average. And the last movement is called Mounds. And in Mounds, we can see the top feelings over all time. And so we see that better is the #1 feeling, followed by bad and good, and so on. But it's also fun to go down and see some of the less common feelings. So not a lot of people feel restrained. And even fewer people feel affectionate. And fewer people feel disrespectful. And if you hold your mouse down, they'll do a little dance for you. And you can also do a search. So you can search for women who are feeling abnormal, who are in their 20s when it's cloudy in Afghanistan. I'm not actually going to do that search because I don't think there's going to be a lot of results. But one movement that I didn't show you because I wasn't sure about the internet connection, I didn't want to rely on the internet connection here, is a movement called montage. And in montage, every time there's a picture or image on the same blog post as a feeling sentence, We Feel Fine automatically crops the photo and overlays the feeling sentence. And so, so you see some really beautiful micro stories. I'll show some for you right now. I feel loved. I wouldn't hide it if society didn't make me feel like I needed to. I feel these weirdos are actually an asset to college life. I think about what you would say and what you would do, but most importantly, I think about how you would make me feel. And despite knowing you could hurt me, I dream about you anyway. I really feel something special when we're together. And so we made a video of some of our favorite montages, and I'll show that for you right now. So, but that only tells half of the story. These micro stories are really beautiful, but by now we've collected about 15 million feelings, and so we can tell some really nice macro stories about the data. So, for example, this is a graph of joy over age, and you can see that as people grow older, they get slightly happier. And we can also see that they express a lot less sadness and a lot less anger and a lot less disgust. So for those of you who are in the audience who are young, it gets better. And here's a map of about 1 million feelings in the United States. And you can tell that there's not a lot of people in the Rocky Mountain West. And so it's not a surprise that people in the Rocky Mountain West feel the most lonely. And you can tell that the people who feel the most sick are in the Northeast and the North. One of the states that's the most is Massachusetts. You can see that the states that feel the most fat are California, New Jersey, and New York. But the states that actually are the most fat are Texas, Alabama, and Mississippi. And we can do time series analysis as well. This is a graph of election day when Obama was elected, and there was a big spike in the feeling proud. It's actually the proudest day that we've seen in the 5 years that we've collected data. There's also a smaller spike in the feeling excited. On Valentine's Day, we see a spike in the feeling loved and a spike in the feeling special, but we see an even bigger spike in the feeling lonely. And that spike starts a few days before Valentine's Day. And we can see that people are happier in the mornings than in the evenings, and lonelier on the weekends than during the week. And we can take a look at feelings that commonly co-occur together to draw a feeling map. And so here we see that happiness and gratitude are very related to one another. And anger and depression are also related to one another. And we also see that happy feelings tend to cluster together and sad feelings tend to cluster together. But there are a couple of, there's a couple of bridge feelings. So people who feel proud also tend to feel ashamed more often. And people who feel beautiful also feel ugly more often. And then there's some emotional islands where people who are feeling this don't feel that much else. So when people are feeling empty, they tend to only feel empty. And when people are feeling overwhelmed, they tend to only feel overwhelmed. And so when we launched this, we also launched an API with the idea that we'd make it available and social scientists would do some scientific inquiry on the feelings that we've collected. And some have. So this is a great paper by Peter Dodds and Chris Danforth. And in this particular study, they show the difference of how happy people feel depending on their distance from the equator. And those that are closer to the equator are happier. But what we found was more so than this kind of study, people made things that we never would have anticipated. So this is an artist in Denmark who lit up the city tower in Aarhus, which is the second largest city in Denmark, based on how people in Denmark are feeling. And because it's the tallest tower in the town, anybody driving around Aarhus could just look up at any time and see how their countrymen or women were feeling. This is a group out of the Netherlands who had this intuition that people go into a bar and tell the bartender how they're feeling, and the bartender makes them a drink. So these guys made a robotic bartender that will make you a drink based on how the internet is feeling. And they called this taste the emotional state of the internet. And this is one of the most beautiful things that I've seen built on top of the API. So this is Bill Gaver and his colleagues out of England. And they worked with a convent in northern England who the nuns had taken a vow of seclusion. And he wanted to build a tool that would help people to pray. And so they built this thing that looks a little bit like a cross. But on the top, there's an LED screen. And that LED screen will stream feelings from the We Feel Fine API. And at first, the nuns did not like it. They didn't understand why people were so narcissistic or so public with their feelings. But after a while, they grew to really like it. And one of the nuns said that, I understand that talking about your feelings is the closest that many people come to prayer. And so when they would see a feeling, they would pray along with the person the anonymous person who expressed their feeling on the internet. And I thought that was a very beautiful image. And you can do these kinds of analyses not just with emotions and blogs. So this is another piece that we did in 2008. And this was for the MoMA. And this, instead of looking at emotions and blogs, looks at identity and online dating sites. So I'll play a video for you right now.
I Want You to Want Me is a project that explores the search for love, but also the search for self in the world of online dating.
Every few hours, we pull data from online dating sites all over the world. We put these dating profiles in a database. We do several different movements, and each of these movements explores a different topic. One movement explores who people are, and that's called Who I Am. One movement explores what people are looking for. That's called What I Want. And we allow people to search through them by saying, like, I'm interested in seeing what women in their 20s are like, and I want to see what men in their 60s are looking for.
So the blue balloons are men, and the pink balloons are women, and the darker balloons are older people, and the lighter balloons are younger people.
Whereas all the other movements are very, very chaotic, with all of these balloons careening around the screen, Matchmaker offers finally some resolution. So in Matchmaker, we algorithmically pair people together based on what they say in their profiles. So the next movement is called Snippets, and it actually consists of 3 smaller movements. Snippets takes little text snippets from people's dating profiles out of context. In this case, this is called Openers, and this is showing the opening lines from people in their dating profiles.
This particular movement is the closing statements of all the profiles. And this movement is the movement that you can see the silhouettes best. So each of these are a silhouetted person, and they represent people trapped inside balloons looking for love.
Taglines is going to take the text snippet that is the subject line of the people's profile and then put them all in this DNA double helix here, which is kind of the symbol of identity.
So one thing that's interesting with these is you see half of these are men, half of these are women, and this represents the population on dating profiles. So this last movement is called breakdowns. And what we do is we then say, what are some ideas about the population in general, or what are some information about the population in general? So for example, what are the top first dates? A lot of people like to go to coffee. A lot of people like to go to a movie.
In online dating profiles, what people do is they talk about themselves in maybe 200 words, and they say the most important things about themselves. And so it's a very fertile ground for building a mosaic of humanity.
So one small note that I'll make is, so you've noticed that in those balloons there were several silhouetted videos, and those were video. Neither Jonathan or I do video, so we actually had asked someone named Jason Wishnow to do those. And I bumped into him right here. Jason, are you here? Oh, well, he must have left. But if you see him, give him a big hug. So there were a number of ideas that we wanted to convey in these 2 projects, and I'll talk about a couple of them now. The first is this idea of a social microarray, that because of all the data on the social web, if we build tools on top of that data about people, we can allow social scientists to quickly generate hypotheses that they can then follow up with laboratory experiments. In the same way that in biology, with the microarray, biologists can very quickly test to see correlations between genes and then later follow up with, say, a knockout study. And in biology, the microarray has really had a large impact on the field. And we think that social microarrays will have a big impact on the social sciences. The second idea that we wanted to convey is this idea of experiential data visualization. So most data visualizations, the goal of the data visualization is to expose patterns in the data. And we do that here, but a lot of people use these pieces for very different reasons. And they weren't spending that much time looking for the patterns in the data, but instead they were going through each individual data items. And it suggests a class of data visualizations called experiential data visualization that rather than focusing on finding patterns, especially with human data, focusing on allowing an interactive experience with each individual data item. And what that can do a number of interesting things. For example, evoke empathy or foster self-awareness or self-reflection. And these are important in addition to the patterns that we see in the data. So I'll sum it up by, at the beginning I asked, are there any opportunities that present themselves? Or what are the opportunities that present themselves in search with this new web? And the opportunity, and two answers to that, is the opportunities that present themselves are the ability to do large-scale human analysis using social microarrays, and to foster personal-scale human connection using experiential data visualization. Thank you.